Hello! Today, I want to share with you how I pick my investments in my 401k retirement account. I don't know about you, but when I first started working and had to set up my 401k account, there were so many funds available, I did not know what they were and ended up not knowing what to choose. If you're in the same boat as I was a couple years back, hopefully what I will share today is helpful for you. Alright? Before we go any further, I want to make a big disclaimer here. None of what I'm about to share should be taken as professional financial advice. Alright? And with that out of the way, here's how I pick my investments for my 401k account.
This is what it is, okay? Be water, my friend.
Hi there, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Kain Juju-Base, engineer in corporate America for a couple years now, and I like to share lessons I learned navigating life in hopes that I can provide tips for you to live your best life. And today, we'll be keeping with the theme of personal finance for early career folks. Alright, here's the outline of today's video. First of all, I'll go through the typical type of funds you will see in a 401k account. Number two, I'll share the takeaways I've learned from attending workshops provided by my company's retirement account provider. And last but not least, number three, how I pick my funds for my 401k account. So, type of funds. Let's categorize the type of investment based on a risk-reward scale, okay? Typically, this relationship holds true. Risk is proportional to potential reward. Here's what we're gonna do. We'll start from the riskiest asset and work our way down to the more conservative assets. Okay, starting at number one, we have the most riskiest of them all, your company stock. A single stock is the riskiest investment of them all. It can bring you great gains, but at the same time, it can also bring you great losses. For example, if you work in these companies for the last couple of years, you must be laughing all the way to the bank now if you have invested in your company's stock. However, for these companies, maybe not so. So in summary, stocks are like a roller coaster. Okay, so what is less risky than a single stock? A bucket of them. These are called stock funds. By investing in many stocks, you spread out your risk and thus lowers it. But at the same time, you also lower your potential return on investment. This is called diversification. An analogy to diversification can be thought of as putting shock absorbers to the roller coaster such that it smoothen out its ride. The weightage of each company's stock in a fund can be actively managed or passively managed. What do I mean by weightage? For example, if I have $100, I might decide to allocate $50 for company A, $30 for company B, and $20 for company C. In an actively managed fund, or more commonly known as mutual funds, there is a fund manager that is responsible for monitoring and rebalancing the weight of each company's stock investment in your fund. So that means you usually have to pay a higher fee for this fund manager to do his work. This fee is incurred as an expense ratio. More on expense ratios in a bit. Now, how about passively managed funds? These are commonly known as index funds. The weightage of each company in the fund follows a certain index and therefore does not need anyone to actively manage it. Some examples of indexes that you may have heard of are the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the Nasdaq Composite Fund. Here you can see the top 10 companies in terms of weightage in the S&P 500 index. Okay, now going deeper into stock funds, there are several types of stock funds. First one is domestic stocks. Domestic means within the USA, okay? And within the USA, we can categorize the stocks by their market capitalization, okay? So we have the large cap, medium cap, and the small cap. A simple way to wrap your head around this is that large companies usually fall under the large cap, while on the other hand, smaller companies fall under the small cap. Common sense should somewhat tell you that since the larger companies are more stable and have a proven track record of profit, their stock value are often more stable. So this provides value, but alternatively, that means that they do not have a lot of room to grow. Low risk, low growth potential. On the other end of the spectrum, small cap companies' stock prices are not stable. They have the potential to grow tremendously, but also at the same time has a higher potential to sink under. Okay? Besides the domestic stocks, there are also foreign stocks which invest in stocks outside of the US. Alright, going down the risk-reward ladder, now we arrive at something called bonds. Here's a crash course on how bonds work. When corporations or governments need funds to execute on its plans, One of the ways it can get these funds is by issuing bonds. The incentive for the buyer is that these corporations or governments will pay an interest as a thank you for buying their bond. While there are inherent risks in bonds as well, generally bond investments are much less riskier than stock investments. And again, with less risk comes less potential return on your investment. And then so a bond fund just means a collection of different bonds. Okay, moving further down the ladder, we have cash or money market funds. Think of these like a traditional bank account. This form of investment has the lowest risk of them all. They provide you with a stable interest, but however, these interests are typically very low. But you can have the peace of mind that your value of investment can be preserved throughout the lifetime of the investment. Cheers. Okay, now stepping out of the risk reward ladder, we have a very interesting fund that's also available to choose from in your 401k account, and these are called target date funds. These are the ones that you usually see a date associated with them. The date means when you plan to retire by. The hallmark of a target date fund is that it automatically rebalances its asset allocation over time. For example, in your beginning years, the target date fund will invest in more riskier assets such as stocks to give you a higher growth potential. But over time, as you grow older and approach your retirement date, the fund will automatically rebalance your portfolio such that it now is investing more in more conservative funds like bonds and money market funds, while reducing its investments in the riskier assets. Okay, those are the type of funds that I see in my 401k provider. And with that, let's move on to the second section. My takeaways from attending workshops provided by my retirement account provider. I would say your best source of information for retirement planning is still your retirement provider in your company. Give yourself an action item to block away 1 to 2 hours in your calendar to attend their workshops or to give them a call. They can help you out by creating a retirement plan that fits your financial situation. For me, I'll just share the biggest takeaways that I've learned from my retirement provider. Number one is to diversify my asset allocations. It is important to know the risk and potential reward of each type of investment asset as described earlier. And then based on your risk tolerance and financial goals, allocate your investments appropriately. Number two, rebalance. You want to make sure you check back into your 401k account every year and make sure that the asset allocation is still in line with your current financial goals, right? Always reevaluate your risk tolerance every year and rebalance as necessary. For those of you who have chosen a target date fund, then no worries. The fund both brings diversification and rebalancing over time. So all that is taken care of you automatically. On the other hand, if you're choosing your own assets, again, I would highly recommend you to talk to your retirement provider and ask for their guidance. Okay, moving on to how I pick my funds. I'll cycle through the type of assets presented earlier and give my thoughts on each one of them. Again, big disclaimer here, these are just my thoughts, not professional financial advice. Starting with company stock. Since the majority of your income is heavily dependent on your company, so putting your retirement prospects on the stock value of your company may not be a wise decision. As they say, don't put all your eggs into one basket. Alright, next, stock funds and bond funds. If I wanted to do it myself and not choose the target date fund and choose a variety of stock funds and bond funds, I would try to find the ones with the lowest expense ratio. Okay, so here is what expense ratio is. An expense ratio is the cost of owning a fund. So for each dollar you own in the fund, you have to pay the amount specified by the expense ratio. For example, if a fund has 0.3% expense ratio, you have to pay $0.0003 for every dollar you own. That means if you own $10,000 in the fund, you have to pay $30 as a fee. This may look little, but as your investment grows, the fees you pay increases too. Okay, next, money market funds. For early career people, I wouldn't put my retirement money into this type of fund as this has a very low growth rate. For early career folks, you have so much time for your investments to grow. So usually the common advice is that in your early years, be more aggressive. Okay, how about target date funds? So if I want a type of fund where I can set it and forget it, and it automatically does all the good things that I need, for example, diversification and rebalancing over time, I would choose a target date fund. And then what if you're more advanced, you don't want to choose a targeted fund, but however, the fund selections in your 401k provider sucks. For example, they may have insane expense ratios. Hopefully, your retirement provider has an option for you to invest outside of their fund selection. That way, you're essentially free to choose whatever type of investment you would like to put in your 401k account. Okay, so this brings me to what I do. So for me, I'm on the younger side, so I would like to be more aggressive. That means I can stomach some fluctuations or a possible higher growth in my investment. After doing much YouTube research and reading around, I'm convinced that investing regularly in the US Total Stock Market Index Fund over the long term is the way to go for me. As its name implies, total stock market captures the entire market of the US economy. That includes all the large cap companies and the medium cap companies and the small cap companies. Depending on your provider, you should be able to easily find this type of US Total Stock Index funds. Okay, here are some examples. You got VTSAX from Vanguard, you got FSKAX from Fidelity, and SweatSX from Charles Schwab. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I like the name SweatSX. I'll link a couple of articles and resources down in the description box below describing the benefits of investing in a US Total Stock Index Fund. Okay, so don't hear it from me. Even Warren Buffett endorses this investment strategy. So what about you? Let me know in the comments, what type of funds did you choose for your 401k account? Okay, so that was a very shallow glimpse into the thought and mindset of how you should pick your funds for your retirement account. Hopefully, by sharing my opinions, that you are now more informed and can make further informed research or decisions on your own. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. Please help me share this with your friends, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.